With this weapon, you're guaranteed 110% win rate. You can't lose, it's too broken, it's too strong. Please nerf this weapon, SBI. Yo, what's up guys, this is Sane here. Today we're going to be making a meta tier list for the Mists. This is for all the new players, this is for veterans, this is for casuals, this is for everyone. And you might wonder, what makes you allowed to say what is the best, the meta, what to play, right? Well, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Sane. I've been playing this game since the free-to-play launch. I have about 20k hours in the game, so I think that makes me more than qualified to make this list. Alright, but with no further ado, let's get into the list. So I'm just gonna explain the list before we go any further. Obviously, we don't have the don't play, and obviously anything here, don't play it. Alright, but you're like, Sane, my favorite, I love playing the Poglog. Why is it in the don't play? I kill so many people with it. Look, buddy, Poglog ain't good. I hate to break it to you, this is a real tier list, this is a meta tier list, so I'm not going to be trolling and putting a Poglog even in the list. It's terrible. Don't play it. Anyways, let's get started with the list. So first off, we have one-handed fire, the rat's favorite weapon. Alright, I think one-handed fire is pretty solid. Fire in general has really strong damage, and you could go low tier, you could kill very high tier players. It's a really good weapon, but it's obviously not up there because it has no mobility. Sure, you have some movement speed buffers on W, but that's kind of where it stops, and I'll put it as C tier. It does damage, but it just lacks mobility. It dies really easily, right? You're on cloth, so you're gonna die pretty easily, but you won't accomplish much. But it's a good rat weapon. Alright, for Chillhowl, I think with any frost, the spells are really good. You get Frost Nova, which you could iframe with. You get the Qs. You have the E, that's also another type of iframe, like ice blocking yourself. You could dodge a lot of spells, but it's obviously not up there as well, because most of the time you're going to be on cloth, so you're very squishy, and you just lose to all the meta builds. But I put it at A tier. I think Chillhowl is very solid. It's an artifact as well, so you're going to be having that big damage. Great Frost. Alright, so Great Frost is another one of those really strong weapons that I see people playing on lower tier. They usually run a cloth armor with a keeper cape, and they do so much damage. I think the E it really hits you, but it's not that good either. I think it kind of has the same problems that any cloth user has, and that's just, it dies too easily, right? So I put that in C tier, but it's for sure playable. You could pull some really cool kills off with this even in low tier. Alright, Great Hammer, S tier. I think it has great mobility. You have the stun on the E, you have the insane slow on the W, and if you go Thetford Cape, insane damage with the Q as well. And obviously it makes use of Stalker Jacket, and Stalker Jacket with CD and ability damage on weapon. It's just crazy, right? I put that in S tier. It's for sure not S plus. It's not broken, but it's up there. It's S tier. It's really good. It's really good. Tomb Hammer. I think Tomb Hammer is just a worse grade hammer, but it's not A tier. It's still up there because you still have the OPW. You have a really good E stun. You could even use the Stalker Jacket, but it's like low on the S tier. I would not put it at highest tier. It's like far in the back. Alright. Claymore. I think Claymore is good because it's a sword, it's a two-hander, it does a lot of damage, but the E is just very lackluster to use. It doesn't really feel that good. Like, you could have your stacks purged, it could get Mistwalker jacketed. There's just so many things that messes up your E, and it just doesn't do that much damage, even at 3 stacks. Especially if you're on leather. If you're on cloth with keeper cape, sure, there is something there, but I'll put it as C tier. I think Claymore is very lackluster. Alright, Boltcasters. Boltcasters sadly just isn't good, but we got its own tier here. We're gonna put it in Sheath Weapons. Sheath Weapons is just weapons that are really good in specific moments. Like Boltcasters, if they can't interrupt your E and you're running like a Sleep Helm or a Demon Helm, I think it's really good. If you can get the full E off Keeper Cape, they have no mobility, it's really good. You could kill high tier players even in like flat 6, but you gotta get your E off, and that's the big problem. It gets cancelled, they run away from you, they kite you, you're in clock, so you die in like one hit. So it's in the sheath weapons category, it works, but it's not good. Blazing. You know, I really like Blazing, especially with the face scale Love Bunny build. I think it's really good. It's in the sheath weapons tier list. I've seen people run tier 8 and kill 8-4. It has its own niche, its own playstyle. You go Mistwalker Hood, face scale robe, and rejuvenating sprint and boots, and Morgana cape. It's strong. It's fun to play. It's a 200 fire, so it packs a punch. It's really nice. It's fun to play, but it runs into the same problems as all the sheath weapon builds have. If your opponent has a brain, if he knows how to play against your build, it just often fully shuts down your build. Like if you don't hit into the face scale robe, the Blazing doesn't get a good E. He runs demon boots, so there he's also like messed up. It's a rough weapon to play, but it's really fun. I've played it a couple times. I would say it's in the sheath weapons tier list. Right, for the Avalonian Gloves. I think the Avalonian Gloves and gloves in general are really good. I think they have good mobility, they have good damage. There is very well rounded, but I would not put it in the S tier. First, because it has really big energy problems and obviously the super long cooldowns. They have really good spells, but the cooldowns, they really match how good they are, right? And since it's a two-hander, you can't be running a Mistcaller or a Torch. So you're kind of locked on the cloth full damage build. It works, it's good, it's A tier. It's in the middle of the pack, right? Right, for the Brawler Gloves. I think Brawler Gloves is another one of those sheath weapons where you go cloth, you go assassin or cleric robe, and you don't have much mobility, but you're really good at brawling, right? You have a nasty brawl. I've seen people with flat 7 kill tier 8 people, like 8.3, 8.4. I've seen it all, right? I think they're really good if you're really good at them and have high spec, right? But obviously, like any sheath weapon, it has its big faults. Alright, for battle bracers. I think battle bracers are really good because one, it's a glove, you get all the OP spells, but I think the E packs a really good punch. And you can go leather and you can go for the reset where you just do your whole combo and you reset. I've seen an 8-4 guy run Stalker Hood, Assassin Jack, and it hits real hard. Right, I'll put it in A tier. Obviously it's not S tier, it's not C tier, it's A tier. I put it pretty good. Alright, so Demonic. I think Demonic is a really good kite weapon. If you're into curse and you want to kite, you could obviously go Q2 or Q3 and go Desecrate and just play for the kite, right? You play Assassin Jacket, you play like a Bob Helm, but sadly that playstyle of curse is not that good. But if you were to play that playstyle, Demonic is one of the better options, but that goes in B tier for now. Well, this is a fucking CVC weapon. Blight Staff. Well, the thing with the Blight Staff, you guys, I think if you want to PvE Fame Farm, don't use any other nature staff than Blight. So I'm gonna put it in B tier, alright? Obviously it doesn't really work in PvP, but for PvE, you get the two-hander, so you do more damage. You get the E that gives you movement speed, you can't be stunned. You get healed. It has everything for a rat weapon, alright? So that goes in B tier. Realmbreaker. I've seen some videos of Gucci Realmbreakers killing really high IP targets, but I think the E is just very lackluster to use. I think the Q and W is good, you get high IP, but it's not good by any stretch of the imagination. So that goes in C tier. Alright, for the Grailseeker. Well, Grailseeker it's just B tier, it's very bad. If you want to play Quarterstaff, I would not play Grailseeker, right? Because of the E, they can just jump out and they're not even rooted anymore. Right, for the regular Quarterstaff. I think if you're into Quarterstaff and you want to play more of a brawler build, Quarterstaff is your pick. I will put that in C tier. The E is very nice. You get big damage. It makes you immune to stuns. And yeah, I would go for way more all-in build here. I would not go for a kite build and play Quarterstaff, but I think it's solid. It's C tier. Yeah. Bow of Badon? Well, I think Bow of Badon, if you were to play bow, it's for sure the best bow in the mist, but the problem is the damage is just so low. Like every Badon I faced, even high IP, high tier, they just don't do damage to leather. It's very lackluster to play. You have to. It's hard to die to a Badon, and they die so easily themselves. So I'll put it like low C tier, because if you want to play bow, it's for sure the best bow, but try to avoid it, right? For the one-handed frost, well, it's kind of like the Chillhowl. I think you either want to play the Chillhowl or the one-handed. It's personal preference. I think the E feels a bit more nice to use. They can't really move out of it like they can in Chillhowl. So just pick your poison, right? See what you want to play. I like the one-handed frost more. Alright, for the heavy crossbow. Well, it's for sure not the best crossbow. I would call it the second best crossbow if you compare it to the one-hander. But the E packs a punch. It's a two-hander, so it has great damage. But it just doesn't compare to its brother, the one-handed crossbow. So I'll put that in B tier. Alright, for bow. Well, you see, bow is really good in 1v1s, but it just lacks mobility. That's why it's meta in Corrupted, because you can't really kite the same way in Corrupted. But in Mist, since you have no mobility, it's easy to get ratted. Sure, you have damage, but you just don't have the mobility. This is a low B tier weapon. Try to avoid it. Alright, for the crossbow. Well, it's pretty terrible. It's one of the worst sheath weapons because, you know, the E gets cancelled so easily. You have to be on cloth, so you die very easily. You have to go Morgana Cape for the E. It just doesn't feel great to use, but of course you could kill people if they underestimate you and disrespect you. But I would try to avoid it. But if you really love it, you could play it. It's doable. Alright, for SOB, obviously don't play SOB. Deathgivers. I think Deathgivers is a really good S tier weapon. Here you have mobility, you have high damage, and it's magical damage, so it goes really hard on plate. It scales very good with IP. It's a really good weapon to main. The skill cap is pretty high. It's just overall a really good weapon. Obviously it's not in the S+, because it doesn't really utilize cooldown with Starker Jacket and ability damage, which kind of is the S+ tier weapons, the ones with like unlimited mobility, and on paper you can never die. You can for sure die with a Deathgiver, but it's really solid. I'm gonna put that in the S tier. Alright, the Cursed Skull. I think Cursed Skull is a really solid curse weapon, especially if you want to play more of an all-in type of curse build with like Demon Boots, Merc Jacket, or Royal Boots, Merc Jacket. But sadly it just lacks the mobility. It has no mobility on its spells. It has really good damage, but the mobility is just where it dies. But I would say if you want to play Curse, consider giving Cursed Skull a try. I'm gonna put it in the middle of the C tier. Alright, for Pike. I think Pike is good if you want to play a sheath type of build, maybe like Night Boots, Cleric Robe, Hunter Hood, like tier 7, and you want to sheath kill people, but it's at the bottom of B tier. There's way better spears. Alright, Soulscythe. I've seen some people run Soulscythe, but the issue is the E is kind of clunky to use, and even if you hit it, it doesn't do all that much damage, and it kind of forces you into a one-shot type of build. You kind of don't want to play a kite build, since your E is like an all-in spell. It's not really a kite spell, so I'm going to put it at the bottom of the B tier. Warbow. Alright, Warbow is for sure on par with Badon, especially if you want to play a bit lower tier. I think the E is very good, and especially like the buffs we're seeing to Warbow, it's up in the C tier. Right, I will put it next to Fire. I think it's really good. The E is pretty easy to hit, especially now that everybody is on like low ping. I think Warbow is a really solid bow. Kingmaker. Our Kingmaker is good because you get very high IP since it's an artifact, but come on guys, the E is just so clunky to use. It's hard to hit. It doesn't feel nice when you miss it, and yeah, if you miss it, you're immediately dead. So I'm gonna put it at the bottom of B tier. Alright, for the Black Monk Staff. So the Black Monk isn't really good, but just annoying to face, right? The E reduces your damage. You go an all-in build with Q2 and you just brawl people. But the issue here is you lose mobility with the E spell. It gives you no mobility, it doesn't really give you damage, just reduces damage. So it's not that good. I'll put it in the middle of C tier. I think it's doable, especially if you play high tier, but I would try to avoid it and play any other Quarterstaff. For the one-handed crossbow, I think one-handed crossbow is really good for a cloth user. I'll put it behind gloves. I find it really strong. You go Garden Helm, so you have a shield, you have the Cleric Robe shield, you have really high damage. Like, you can't sit and brawl with this build. You kind of have to go for one-shots, but that's why it is A tier. Like, it doesn't really provide any mobility. Sure, you have some movement speed on W, but it just struggles against high mobility targets that can use chitin and keep going and resetting the fight. Alright, Dagger Pair. I think Dagger Pair is pretty good. I think you could play the Assassin Jacket Hellion Hood one and you can make it work, but that's the thing, you can make it work. It won't really strive. I'm gonna put it in the front of the B tier. I think it's a pretty good weapon. Greataxe. Yeah, Greataxe is just disappointing, really. Like, the E, it locks you in, so you can't use any spells while you're doing it. Sure, you're CC immune, but you're not really, like, nobody's standing in the E. They're just using a defensive and you're really useless, and yeah, then you're dead pretty much. It's for sure at the bottom of B tier. Alright, Heron Spear. I think Heron Spear is good. It's a one-hander, so you can get Torch for the auto attacks, and it's an artifact, so you get the high IP, you get the stun, but it just doesn't compare to one-handed. You don't really have mobility on the E. You have a stun. It's hard to hit at far, but it's at the end of the day, it's a one-handed spear. You get to go Torch, you get Snapper, you have really good healing. I'm gonna put it in the middle of C tier. Alright, Carving. I think Carving is good. It's not the best, but it's a really good S tier weapon. It does good into everything, but it has a tough time if you're not good at it, right? You have to hit the W and E all the time. The base damage is really good. You have access to parry strike. It's just a really good weapon. You don't need stacks for the E for it to do its max damage. It's a really good weapon, and if I was to consider maining one, I would say swords, right? Especially since they're not really touching it. Carving is probably gonna go untouched for a bit, yeah. So I would say, if you're looking for a weapon to main, stick with Carving. Greatcurse. I think Greatcurse is kind of like Demonic. It's really good if you want to play that kite playstyle, but the kite playstyle is kind of mid, but it's for sure better than Demonic since you can keep the stacks up more easily than Demonic. OathKeepers. Well, I think OathKeepers is just a for fun weapon. It's not really strong per se, but you still have the Mace W, which is pretty good. You get the root. You have the Q, which is really strong, gives you armor. But the E is just lackluster. They kite you pretty easily. They could perch you, so it's for sure not that strong. I put it in the middle of B tier, in front of Curse. Actually, I'm gonna put it at the front of B tier. I think it's better than Dagger Pair still. Alright, for Witchwork. I think Witchwork, if you were to play Arcane, it's one of the better ones. You get the pull ability on the E, which sets up your W and Q. But Arcane, I mean, it has the same problem as the one-handed. Doesn't really have mobility. It has damage, but it just lacks mobility. It's for sure better than Dagger Pair, but it's a niche weapon. You can make it work, but it's not really that good. Alright, Bearpaws. I think Bearpaws are really good. It's an artifact, so you get more IP. It's a two-hander, so your Q and W hits really hard. And the E, it's a mobility spell and a damage spell, so you're kind of getting everything you want there. It doesn't really compete with the S tier weapons, but it's for sure at the front. It's behind gloves, I would say. And next to Crossbow. I think that's a good place. It's really strong. It's very doable to play. Alright, for the one-handed Arcane. I think if you want to play Arcane, it's for sure better than Witchwork. You get the purge, you get the damage, so you don't really have to run a purge in your build. I think one-handed is a really solid pick if you want to play Arcane. I'll even put it at the front of B tier. I think it's really strong with the Purge. Alright, for the one-handed axe, I think it's really good, especially when you go Moisac, you have a lot of damage. The E, obviously it hits like a truck if you use Moisac. The healing, the damage, you get the W. You have the Q, that's really good. I'll put it next to the dual swords. It's not S tier, it loses to the S tier weapons, obviously, if you don't place like extremely well. Alright, Shadowcaller. I think it's one of the better all-in weapons. It hits really hard into plate with the E. It's not that good into leather, but if you want to play like a plate curse build, it's pretty strong. I'm gonna put that behind one-handed fire. Alright, for Battle Axe. I think Battle Axe is a very solid axe. You get Moisac, you get the E that's really strong. It does damage, it heals you. Sadly, it has no mobility on the E, but I for sure think it's better than the Bearpaws. I even put it in front of the gloves because it makes snapper food really nice. It makes use of it really good, and it hits hard with Moisac. For one-handed curse, I'm gonna put one-handed curse at the front of the sheath weapons. I think one-handed curse, if they have no counters to it, it's busted, right? The issue is that everybody kind of has a counter. People have Mercury to interrupt the E, they have Mistwalker Jacket to take 0 damage from the E, I mean rest pods, gig pods and everything, but if they have no counter, this weapon is obnoxious and near impossible to play versus. So I'm going to put it at the front of sheath weapons. Alright, for Lifecurse. Well, Lifecurse, I wouldn't say it's better than Shadowcaller. I would say it's kind of behind. Sure, you get the Purge, but the E on Shadowcaller is just way better. It was really strong when it was bugged and the E did a lot of damage, but now that it's fixed, it's kind of lackluster, to be honest, at best. One-handed dagger. Well, one-handed dagger is one of those weapons you can play really low tier and you could kill high tier opponents. It has high outplay potential, but you're relying so much on your E and your jacket that it's really rough, right? Especially if they kite your E, they Mistwalker Jacket, Assassin Jacket, or just run away from you, then the weapon just becomes very lackluster. But it's for sure an A tier weapon. It's really strong, but I put it behind one-handed crossbow. Wildfire. Well, if you're ratting, this weapon is fucking S+, right? If you're a rat, but it kind of has the same struggles as one-handed fire. It doesn't really have mobility. If they're not on top of you, I mean, you're not hitting that E, dude. From range, it's really rough to hit the E, but as a rat weapon, it's really good. I'm gonna put it in the sheath weapons tier list. Hoarfrost. Yeah, I mean, Hoarfrost, terrible. Don't play. One-handed mace. I mean, if I really wanted to play Mace, I wouldn't play OathKeepers. I would stick to Mace. I think Mace is really good. You get the iframe on the E, you have the stun, you have mobility, you have damage. I mean, just saying all of those things, I'm gonna put it in the C tier. It has everything. It has a snare, it has a stun, it has damage, it has a really good Q. But sadly, it just doesn't compete with the A and S and S+ tier weapons. It's good, but it's in the middle of the pack, right? It's not the best. Bloodletter. Alright, I'm gonna just do this. Alright, it's S+, no debate. It makes use of Torch perfectly. It makes its use of Stalker Jacket perfectly. If you attune it, you get CD ability damage. I mean, your Stalker Jacket goes crazy. Then you Merc Hood, it barely has any cooldown. It's so strong. It has a mobility on every spell. Your Q is a jump, your W is a dash, your E is a dash, it's an execute. I mean, this weapon has it all, right? So it's for sure S+. If you play it well, like you're not gonna die. That it's just broken. It's really, really broken. Clarent Blade. All right. I mean, I love this weapon. I love the E. But sadly, it just isn't that good, right? It's kind of like Claymore. It does damage, but the E is kind of clunky to use. It's a one-hander as well, so your Q and W doesn't really hit that hard. But it's a C tier weapon. You for sure can make it work. It's better than Warbow, I would say. I'm gonna put the Great Frost a bit more up like that, since I think it's stronger. It's a solid C tier. Alright, Daybreaker. I think Daybreaker is a really solid weapon. I'm gonna put it next to the axe and the gloves. The E is a bit clunky to use, and if you can get over it and hit the E, like the majority of the times, I mean, there you have a mobility spell, you have a purge, and you have really big damage. And since it's a one-hander, you can run torch, it's an artifact, so it has more item power, makes really good use of snapper, so you have tons of lifesteal there. And spears in general, it's a really good weapon line. One-handed spear. Well, one-handed spear, it's a spear, it uses torch, uses snapper, it's great. I would say it's better than Daybreaker. The E is instant, it's way better for mobility, it has good damage, right? It's just very nice to use. It's a really good weapon line. You have like every W in the world. You can cleanse, you can remove boots, right? You have the deflect, you have impale, you have the pull, you have everything in your W. It's a really solid weapon. Broadsword. Well, Broadsword goes in the don't playlist. Sadly, it's just not good and you should avoid it. Lifetouch. Well, I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna put the Lifetouch and the sheath weapons behind gloves. And that's just because if you really want to play holy, you want to play like a battle mage build, Lifetouch is your pick. You could go smite with holy bless and then like full reset yourself, but the issue is you have no mobility, you have decent damage, you have a lot of sustain, but you're just eventually gonna die. But if you really want to play this build, play Lifetouch if you want to play holy. Alright, for Trinity Spear. It's a spear, it's a two-hander, so it's automatically gonna be good. Sadly, the E is very dodgeable. You could just Mistwalker Jacket it. When he E's, you can purchase stacks, so he can't make use of the E, but it's a solid B tier weapon. It's for sure better than Witchwork, but Trinity is solid. It should not be underestimated. Alright, Double Bladed. Double Bladed goes in the S+ tier. It does not beat any of the top weapons, but I'm gonna put it in the S tier because it also makes perfect use of the Stalker Jacket. It also has Purity Cult, so you get use of this cooldown on weapon. You get use of the ability damage on weapon. It's just crazy obnoxious to play against, especially if you're 8-4, attuned, 120 specs. You're destroying lower tiers, right? You have insane mobility, you have cartwheel, you have stun run, you ease a mobility spell, you have refreshing sprint, you're just going crazy, zooming everywhere on the map, killing everything. Sadly, it has a hard time against equal IP opponents, but it's a really good rat build, high IP build, and if you want to survive and make a lot of money. Alright guys, that's the tier list. Tell me what you think in the comments. I've played this game for a long time, so I think this tier list is very accurate, it's very good. And make sure to subscribe, like the video, leave a comment, tell me what you want to see next, and I'm out.